Hello, my name is Zach Martin, and my literature review was over the security and ethical concerns regarding government-mandated backdoor for consumer computer systems, specifically phones in this case. So a little bit about me. I am a senior in computer science with interest in security. I've been to two of the past couple DEF CONs, and I was a software engineering intern over this summer, and I worked with a two-factor authentication system for a bank. DEF CON is a conference, security conference, where people come to Las Vegas to show what they found recently and just share information with one another, and to learn is why I usually go. So my roadmap for this presentation, I'd like to start with going over my goals for my literature review, a little bit of background about and why I ended up choosing something like this, the ACM ethics and how it is set up, and some of my results, security concerns about the implementation of backdoors, and a couple discussion questions towards the end that I tried to answer. So, my goals for this were to explain if the implementation of backdoors is ethical according to the ACM Code of Ethics, to identify security concerns and possible weak points with a system like this, to evaluate the pros and cons in both an ethical view and the security view to see if the implementation of backdoors is actually feasible. I chose these goals because I wanted to get two sides to this debate, one from ethics and one from security, to see if ethically this was possible and if the ones and zeros of the security side would actually make this feasible. So a little bit of background. So there's two main topics that I want to go over for my background: the San Bernardino shooting from 2015 and the Clipper chip. So the San Bernardino shooting happened on December 2nd of 2015. It was by a man named Syed Farook. He ended up killing 14 people and then killed himself as well. He had a phone that was encrypted with a lockout system that would burn all the data if 10 tries were incorrect to unlock the phone. And the phone could have held key information to the investigation that the FBI was conducting. So the FBI then asked Apple to write software that would go around the operating system and the lockout system to get just the data off of it, and Apple, this is a legal debate, but said no and took the FBI to court over it, where if the court had said yes you have to, then Apple would have. So the Clipper chip was a physical piece of hardware. It was an encryption device from 1993 created by the NSA for telephones and landlines. It was it was actually one of the best encryption devices you could buy at the time, and it was designed to allow calls to be encrypted from one end to the other. The only part about it was it allowed government agencies to listen in with a known backdoor. So this led to a debate of legal encryption as a whole, and the results were that encryption regulation became less strict, which really surprised me, coming from the time we are now in the technology world. I would expect more strict regulation around stuff like that. So I found that really interesting. So ethics, in regards to the ACM, which is the Association of Computing Machinery, they have a code of ethics that is generally accepted for around software development. It is usually you follow your company's guidelines and their code of ethics, and then as well as this code of ethics divided by the association. This association is a professional association that makes a lot of the decisions along with the IEEE, and they help form regulation and other things like that. So the code of ethics, there was two main points I wanted to look over, the two main sections out of 8, I believe, and that is the public section and the client and employer section. The public section really interested me because it's about addresses general public issues and how to code and develop around that. And then the client and employer section labels out what you should do in not situations, but if you find certain things, how to release it or how to keep it secret. I found that the codes were more about making the public good important rather than the employer or client. It was very much a document saying keep it, moderate it, don't choose one side or the other, make sure that you are taking into account both the public good and the good of the employer and client. So the security risks. I want to start by going through recent breaches to show that security is becoming more and more of an issue, because as technology grows, the amount of people that try to break in and get information from technology grows. So, and then the risks that I found that would truly make this difficult to pass. So the recent breaches that I found were, there's over 60 major security breaches since 2015. And the highlighted ones that I brought up are Under Armour, which had 150 million pieces of information stolen, or not stolen, but broken into. Equifax had 143 million social security numbers and all that sort of stuff breached into. And the Friend Finder network was the biggest one since 2015, and that was over 412 million accounts were breached. The biggest one I could find was Yahoo, and they got attacked twice in 2 years, and they ended up losing 3.5 billion passwords that made it out to the open. So data breaches are becoming a very normal part of modern life, and also a very dangerous part of it. So the risks that I found that were really interesting to me was, if we were to implement regulation like this, it would create a master key, a skeleton key that would allow you to get into any device if you could figure out how to use it. So therefore it created a guaranteed loophole in security. And when it comes to personal devices such as your phone, you have a lot of information that you like to keep private and secure. And this also would eliminate physical security that would be legally binding. For example, if you don't have a warrant for the information on your phone, you cannot have the information taken if the cops were to come into a house, for example. They would have to have a warrant specifically for the information on the phone. And this would create a way around that. So, my discussion questions that I really thought were interesting were the privacy versus security debate, which is absolute privacy security or is zero privacy security? If you keep all your stuff private, is that more secure than having everybody have everything out there? That way there's nothing to hide. And then the implementation of government mandated backdoors. Would it be secure and would it be ethical? So my results for the government mandated backdoors were, it depends on what your definition of security is. That's why I had that on my discussion page, is if it's more about being open with the idea of I have nothing to hide, or is it keeping everything private and making sure that nobody can get into your stuff, was the big thing that I found. And then these are both from the client client employer section of the ACM Code of Ethics. These were the two that I found interesting. Keep private any and all confidential information gained in their professional work. I found that the ACM tends to lean towards privacy as a better security than open security, or everybody being open as better security. So, and then I also found that the use of the property of a client or employer, and in my opinion, I was looking at this as employer being the government, the client being the person who owns the phone, is only properly authorized. So going back to my previous point of if a police officer were to come into your house, they cannot just look at the phone and say, open it. So those are two of the pieces that I found really interesting. And then finally, from a security standpoint, I found that this is not going to be feasible because it creates a single skeleton key that could get into any phone, and that is because I'm coming from a standpoint of privacy is better than good privacy is good security, that would compromise the smartphone operating system design and allow, if someone figured out how to get into it, allow them to get into any phone at any time. So that's what I found through my literature review, and found it really interesting how many different viewpoints there actually are to this, and how much information has been looked at, and how to go through it and find really cool and key results to make really big decisions on both the security front and privacy front. So, thank you.